Stop looking for motivation and placing it in absolute. It will not lead you anywhere, and I am going to explain why this happens. Motivation often feels like something solid, as if it should stay once it appears, but in reality it behaves very differently. It shows up, creates movement for a short time, and then quietly disappears, leaving people confused about what went wrong. You have probably felt it before, because a new plan can feel like a new identity, and for a short moment, everything inside you lines up with that idea. You decide to start the gym again, you decide to change careers, you decide to build something online, and the first week feels clean, because the future still looks simple. Then, motivation disappears, and the most confusing part is how normal the day looks while it happens. You do not collapse, you do not panic, and you do not explode into chaos, because you simply delay one thing, and then you delay the next thing, and soon you are watching yourself return to the same routine you said you were leaving. People usually call this a discipline problem, but motivation was never designed to last, and the brain does not treat long projects like a permanent emotional state. Motivation is closer to a spark than a fuel, because it is strongest when the goal is new and when the reward still feels close. At the beginning, novelty does most of the work, because the brain responds to anticipation. You get that early excitement when you imagine the result, and your mind pays you an energy for the idea of a future reward. This is why starting feels easier than continuing, because the early stage is full of imagined outcomes, and imagined outcomes are cheap for the brain. Then the task becomes routine, and routine does not produce the same chemical excitement. The brain adapts fast because it is built to stop reacting to the same stimulus, and what used to feel special becomes normal background noise. The goal does not change, but your nervous system stops paying you in that early feeling, and people often misread that silence as a sign that something is wrong. There is also another problem that is less romantic and more physical, because the day spends you. You make decisions at work, you manage stress, you deal with people, and you control your reactions to avoid conflict, and all of that takes mental effort. By the end of the day, you may still want the result in your head, but your system is tired, and tired systems choose comfort, even when the plan still makes sense on paper. This is where the inner conflict becomes visible, because one part of you thinks in long timelines, and another part of you is built to protect energy and chase immediate relief. The planning part can imagine success, but the survival part cares about effort, discomfort, and uncertainty. When the project starts to feel heavy, the survival part begins to treat it like a threat, not because it is dangerous, but because it demands repeated discomfort with no guaranteed payoff. Motivation loses in that moment, not because you are weak, but because the brain does not reward long effort by default. It rewards clear wins, immediate relief, and predictable safety, and most meaningful goals do not offer any of those things in the early stages. There is also a quiet difference between two kinds of motivation, and people do not notice it until it collapses. Some motivation is external, and it is built out of status, praise, fear, money, and comparison, which can create strong bursts of effort, especially when an audience is watching. External motivation can start a project fast, but it rarely survives the boring middle, because the reward depends on outside signals, and outside signals do not stay consistent. Other motivation is internal, and it is connected to choice, competence, and belonging, because a person needs to feel that they chose it, that they can handle it, and that it fits the life they actually live. When these things are missing, motivation becomes a borrowed emotion, and borrowed emotions always expire. This is why motivation does not last, and it also explains what it means when it disappears. It does not automatically mean the goal is wrong, and it does not automatically mean the goal is right, because all it really means is that the brain has stopped giving you free energy. It means you have reached the part where the image is gone and only the structure remains, and this is the part most people never planned for. Some people respond by chasing a new spark because a new spark feels like progress. They switch goals, switch routines, switch identities, and start again because the beginning feels alive. They think they are searching for the right passion, but often they are only searching for the early chemical reward that comes with novelty. Other people respond by blaming themselves, because self-blame is a simple story, and simple stories feel controllable. They label themselves as lazy, undisciplined, inconsistent, and broken, because that is easier than admitting that motivation was never supposed to carry the whole weight. What this means is that motivation is not a dependable engine, and it never was. even when it felt powerful at the start. It is a signal that something looks rewarding, and it is also a signal that something feels new. And once the brain adjusts, the signal fades. The real moment begins when that signal disappears, because then you find out what remains when the feeling is gone. If motivation has been your main strategy, then every quiet week will feel like failure, even when nothing special happened, because you built your plan on an emotion that was always temporary. So here's the question that stays when the excitement leaves. When motivation stops visiting, what is left in your life that can carry the weight without needing that feeling to return?